reality of circumstances and the reality of vision. Circumstances are what you see, the job you have, the money in the bank, the problems on the table. Vision is what you imagine, the picture of a future that hasn't yet come to pass. Now here's the truth. If your vision isn't bigger than your limits will win every time. I've met people who lived entirely by their limits. They explained why nothing could work, why they couldn't rise, why success belonged to someone else. They had a list of reasons. Not enough money, not enough education, not the right connections. And you know what happened? Their life followed their limits. They proved themselves right. I've also met people who had fewer resources, tougher circumstances, and more obstacles, but they carried a vision larger than the limits around them. And somehow doors opened. Somehow strength appeared. Somehow opportunities showed up. Why? Because vision has power. Vision pulls you beyond your excuses. Vision fuels discipline. Vision forces growth. Without vision, life becomes small. You only do what is safe. You only attempt what you already know. You only reach for what is within arm's length. That kind of life keeps you trapped. You stay where you are, only older. But with vision, the story changes. Suddenly your energy is different. You wake up with purpose. You fight through resistance. You push against obstacles. Vision gives meaning to sacrifice and direction to discipline. Someone once told me, "I'll get serious when life gets easier." But life doesn't get easier. You get stronger. And what makes you stronger is a vision that demands more than comfort. If your vision doesn't challenge you, it's not big enough. If it doesn't stretch you, it won't change you. So ask yourself tonight, what picture of the future are you holding? Is it only as large as your present reality? Or does it expand beyond the limits that surround you right now? Because the size of your vision determines the size of your life. A small vision guarantees a small life. A great vision guarantees growth, challenge, and eventually achievement. I once knew a man who worked the same job for 20 years. Every day looked like the last. He wasn't lazy. He showed up on time, did his work, and collected his paycheck. But when you asked him what he wanted, where he was going, what his future looked like, he had no answer. His vision never reached beyond the walls of the factory. So when the factory shut down, his life shut down with it. He had built his existence on limits, not vision. Now, on the other hand, there was a young woman I met who had far fewer resources. She had no inheritance, no network, no safety net. But she carried a picture in her mind of building her own business. She wrote down her ideas, studied every night after work, and saved every extra dollar to invest in her dream. The odds were stacked against her, but she didn't live by odds. She lived by vision. Within a few years, she had created something from nothing, because her vision was larger than her limits. Limits scream at all of us. They say you can't, you're not ready, you don't have enough. And most people listen. They let the voice of limits dictate their decisions. But vision speaks differently. Vision says, if you discipline yourself, if you learn, if you stay consistent, you can rise. And here's what I've discovered. Whichever voice you listen to shapes your destiny. Vision doesn't erase limits, but it puts them in their proper place. You may not have the money, but vision pushes you to learn how to create it. You may not have the connections, but vision drives you to meet new people. You may not have the skills, but vision keeps you studying until you acquire them. Without vision, the limit becomes the end. With vision, the limit becomes the beginning of growth. That's why I tell people, never measure your future by the size of your present resources. Measure it by the size of your vision. A man with little money but great vision will always outgrow his circumstances. But a man with plenty of money and no vision will eventually shrink into frustration. So if you feel stuck, it's not because of your limits, it's because your vision hasn't expanded. The moment you expand your vision, your energy, creativity, and resourcefulness begin to rise. That's when life starts to change. I remember a friend who decided to run a marathon. At the time, he could barely jog a mile without stopping. His limit was obvious, but his vision was to cross that finish line. So he trained every day, pushed a little further each week, and refused to quit. His legs ached, his lungs burned, and plenty of mornings he wanted to stay in bed. But the vision of the finish line pulled him forward. Months later, he completed the race. His limits didn't vanish overnight. He grew past them because his vision required it. Life works the same way. If your vision doesn't challenge your limits, then it isn't vision. It's just memory. It's just replaying what you've already seen and done. A real vision demands sacrifice. It makes you reorganize your time, your habits, and your priorities. It forces you to trade ease for effort, comfort for consistency. Here's the principle. Growth isn't optional when vision is real. You can't hold a vision of leadership without becoming more disciplined. You can't hold a vision of financial independence without learning how to manage money. You can't hold a vision of better health without changing your habits. Vision demands growth, and if you rise to meet it, you begin to outgrow your limits. But if you don't have a vision, you'll keep circling the same problems. You'll make decisions based only on today's pressures. You'll settle for less than you could become. Limits will feel permanent because there's nothing pulling you past them. Vision is what makes limits temporary. So ask yourself, is the vision you're holding strong enough to stretch you? Or is it so small that it allows you to stay the same? If it doesn't scare you a little, it won't grow you at all. And if it doesn't grow you, it won't change you. Vision becomes real only when you attach it to daily discipline. A dream without action is nothing more than a fantasy. But once you connect vision to consistent effort, the impossible starts looking possible. I knew a young man who wanted to change his financial life. His vision was to become free from debt and eventually own his own business. At the time, he was living paycheck to paycheck, buried under bills, and constantly behind. His limit was clear, but he refused to shrink his vision to fit his circumstances. Instead, he set up a simple plan: save a little each week. That's how vision works. It gives meaning to small actions. Without vision, discipline feels like punishment. But with vision, discipline feels like investment. You're not just waking up early, you're building the future you see in your mind. You're not just saving money, you're buying freedom. You're not just exercising, you're preparing for vitality in the years ahead. Vision transforms routine into purpose. The challenge is this: limits show up every day. Fatigue, doubt, distractions, they all argue for your attention. If you only fight them with willpower, you'll lose. But if you fight them with vision, you'll win. Vision keeps you on course when the temptation to quit is strongest. That's why the key is linking your vision to practical steps. Write it down. Break it into actions you can measure daily. Hold yourself accountable. If the vision is strong enough, you'll find the discipline to match it. And once discipline meets vision, your limits don't stand a chance. Every vision worth holding will meet resistance. The moment you decide to aim higher, the tests will appear. Obstacles are not a sign that your vision is wrong. They're proof that your vision is alive. If there were no resistance, the vision wouldn't matter. I remember a man who set out to grow his small business. He had the energy, the ideas, and the plan. But within weeks, he ran into problems: delayed payments, unexpected bills, and people who doubted him. Most would have said, "See, this proves I can't do it." But he didn't shrink his vision to match the obstacle. He adjusted his approach, tightened his spending, worked longer hours, and kept his eyes on the picture of what he wanted. Over time, the problems were solved, the business survived, and eventually it thrived. The limits screamed, but the vision shouted louder. This is the moment where many people give up. They think difficulty means they should stop, but difficulty is the refining fire. Vision without difficulty doesn't build strength. It's the struggle that proves how much you want it. Here's the principle: obstacles test commitment. Anyone can hold a vision when it's easy. The real question is, will you hold it when it's hard? When the money is short, when people doubt you, when your energy fades? So the next time you hit a wall, don't ask, why me? Ask instead, what is this here to teach me? Because if the vision is strong enough, every obstacle becomes part of the training. And once you've trained long enough, the limits that once held you back will look small compared to the future you created. Vision doesn't stay contained in one area of life. Once you expand it, it spreads. A larger vision for your finances affects your confidence. A larger vision for your health affects your energy. A larger vision for your learning affects your influence. Every part of life is connected, and vision has a way of multiplying across the board. I once spoke with a man who began with a simple vision: to get control of his money. At first, it was just about paying off debt. But as he stuck to the picture he held in his mind, limits will always whisper, later. Vision says, today. Limits say, not you. Vision says, why not you? Limits say, it's too much. Vision says, it's worth it. You have to choose which voice to follow. Decide tonight to expand your vision. Decide to picture a future that is larger than your current reality. Decide to act on that picture every day until it becomes real. If you don't, the limits win by default. If you do, the limits lose their grip, and your life begins to rise. The moment of decision is not someday, it's now. Your vision must be larger than your limits. If it is, nothing can hold you. Think about it. Every achievement you admire began with someone who saw beyond the present. They didn't wait for everything to be perfect. They held a picture in their mind that was greater than what they faced, and they acted on it. Their vision gave them the strength to endure, the discipline to stay consistent, and the courage to press forward. You can do the same. Don't let today's limits fool you into believing they're permanent. They're not. They are only boundaries until vision pushes past them. And the only question that matters is this: what vision are you willing to hold? And what will you do about it, starting now? If you leave here tonight with nothing else, leave with this. Your future is shaped not by the size of your resources, not by the weight of your obstacles, but by the size of your vision. Small vision, small life. Expansive vision, expansive life. So write it down, see it clearly, commit to it fully, act on it daily, and refuse to shrink it just because limits shout at you. Because once your vision is larger than your limits lose their power. Don't settle for what is. Reach for what can be. That is the challenge. That is the promise. That is the truth. Vision must be larger than limits.